All right. It is the number 7 of 33 day of grinding here. I've got a special guest today. I got Jordan Gladstone, training partner, friend, sometimes teammate, sometimes enemy. Um, depends on what day of the week it is. What's up, dude?
Mainly enemy. Not much. How are you?
Good, good. I am just super excited to have you on here. Um, I'm trying to on the weekends get friends, family members, people who are generally helping me achieve my goals, involved and talk to them and review and keep the juice alive. Um,
I like it. I know from talking to you in the past, you do more than just about anyone I know in terms of like recording, in terms of the spreadsheets I've seen, the Google Docs, everything. And so the podcast just kind of is the
speaking of,
natural progression there.
yeah, speaking of spreadsheets, I so this is what I got up on the screen here. I've gone through some of this in previous ones, so I'm just going through or just quick highlights today. Just kind of start our conversation. You and I have talked about this. I set that weight range goal 210 to 220.
Yep.
Came in at 220.0 this morning. Whatever. It's just a number I'm keeping track of. Later we'll talk about inner game of tennis, because I think you're reading it as well, and it is blowing my mind.
Correct.
Um, the thought for today and the last couple of days is mindfulness and meditation. Um, do you practice any kind of meditative practice or weekly, daily?
So I would say that's something that is constantly on my list to do, but not something that constantly gets done. I'm fortunate that my workplace provides the Headspace app for everybody, so I try to at least get involved in that once a week. I would like to be doing it more. I know there's benefits, but yeah.
What is the Headspace app?
So it's just a general mindfulness app. They have different subcategories from like even from exercise mindfulness. So you're almost like a yoga type thing where you're working out and being very aware of what's happening with your body while you're doing so. There's general meditation. They even have a little sports section. So
Wow. Huh. That's so that I didn't know that. I'll have to look into that. I also have been getting back to this. I don't know if I've shown you this before. This foundation training stuff that I was doing when I got out of my hole of back pain last year. Um, um, this let's see. Oh, you know what? I messed up the thing. Give me one sec. It goes like this. Can you hear it?
uh, not really.
No? Okay. I'll have to figure that out. So anyway, yeah, it's like these different like just literally just at keeping your hamstrings super active. Um and it fries your lower back, but essentially the goal is to keep like your hamstring and glute super active. Like this exercise, it's all on that glute.
Yeah.
So
All body weight stuff.
yeah, it's just this one, it's like a 12-minute routine where you're just going through these different positions. I've done it the last 2 days. It's provided a little bit of relief.
Nice.
So we'll see. But that was something I was doing to get out of that back hole. And then the next thing, I added a section for what I'm grateful for today. And I have been extremely grateful for watching Try and Trevor down in Cancun. Have you been following?
I have, yeah. I didn't get to see their game against the Russians, unfortunately, but I did watch their game against Norway, both of their pool play games, and uh, they look good. They look real good.
The thing that blows my mind, I think Triborn might be the best player on the planet. Or maybe he's the best player that you don't like that's not going to be in the Olympics, probably.
Probably the second Olympics in a row where that's going to be the case, unfortunately. Him and Hayden were ranked, I want to say top 10. in 2016 and still didn't make it.
What's crazy is if you like some of the covers that he made in these games. So when they played Russia, like he's covering balls that are like 15 feet away from where they're getting blocked, and he's like laying out one arm dive, like covering this ball, and it's just kind of like shocking. I don't know.
Yeah, it's whenever a team seems to be performing at that level on the world tour, it seems like covering is a huge aspect. Because if you remember Mexico, when they took second in Doha last year, like we had the same conversation. Just how did they cover every single ball?
The they beat Bruno and Avondro again.
Did you watch it? So Bruno's effort was I don't know if COVID is still affecting him or something, but like if the rally went beyond just the first ball side out, he didn't move, didn't try. It was literally like watching Avondro play 1 and 2. It was very strange.
How did they do in the previous event?
I think they lost in the first round of the knockout stage, so 17th place.
Gotcha.
But Brazil chooses their own Olympic delegates, so he's going no matter what. So these tournaments don't really matter, I guess, other than money.
Yeah, money's nice.
Yeah.
Well, I sent Triborn. I sent him a invite to get on one of these.
I love it. You know,
He
worst case scenario, he says no.
He didn't respond. I said him pretty much, hey, I'm super grateful for watching your process and journey to get to Tokyo. Tough loss. Best of luck next week. By the way,
did you explain who you were at all?
No. How does he not know who I am? I mean, everyone knows who I am, right? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm legitimately wondering because, like, I go through every qualifier sign-up list, and the guys who are on there every single time, I generally know, but I don't know if he's doing that or not.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
So I guess I wanted to start pivoting into kind of your journey and improvement that I've seen, which has been impressive over the last 6 months, especially.
Yeah.
Year, but I'd say the last 6 months have been overshadowing the year before that.
Yeah.
But it's not just your game and athleticism. I feel like your mindset's slowly making a shift, and kind of talk about that process and maybe.
Yeah. So I would say the first thing there is you are the people you are surrounded by, right? And I think the last 6 months, especially, we've gotten a lot closer, and keeping up with you, you know, things like we do weekly weight check-ins, right? That's something that's keeping me accountable. We have phone calls a couple days a week, right? Where it's just talk volleyball for 30 minutes, right? That's getting me to think about the game. Additionally, you know, there are all the podcasts I listen to, like Coach Your Brains Out and Talent Equation, right? And try my best to take in as much as I can from things like that in order to help step my game up. Hopefully it translates come qualifier time and all that, but we'll see.
What? Yeah, I think you're right. The OQP, the only quality people. I got that one from Les Brown. I stole that from him, and I try to repeat it. It's so powerful of a lesson in life, I think.
Yeah, and even so, my wife and I do probably watch a little too much TV at night, right? But something that we've recently started to watch is I totally forgot the name, but it's just following chefs who have Michelin star restaurants. And even watching something like that, where you see someone so passionate and so involved in what they're doing, and it's, you know, not translatable at all to volleyball in terms of like the knife skills of a chef, but the passion that they take in being a chef, even seeing something like that, like inspires me. Oh, tomorrow I got to, you know, fix this in my passing because this chef changed the way he held a knife after 20 years. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, maybe that's a good one to. So watching that, I think like a big part of that passion too is like aligning, like figuring out what aligns more naturally with you, right? Like if you're not passionate about washing cars or whatever, you know, maybe that's not what you try to force the effort on. Whereas, you know, beach volleyball, I think for you and me is something you're just like, I fucking love. I train all day doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. I think beach volleyball, we had this conversation recently, but it's the only sport where you entirely determine how far you go, right?
Yeah.
If I win a qualifier game, I'm a professional player the next day. If I lose it, I'm not. So that alone is something that it makes you want to work, right? You know it's not in vain, and you know it is entirely in your hands how far you can go. So I just think like that's such a cool atmosphere to want to get better at every day. Whereas, you know, I played soccer in college. I wasn't the best goalie on my team, not even close, and I wasn't the starter because of that. But I never would have had a chance of playing professionally because you know, it came down to a coach's decision of do I play or not. Does a coach reach out to a professional scout or not about me? Where I would say a lot of the best players on my college team didn't end up playing pro simply because they didn't have the relationship with my coach that some of the other guys did. That did end up playing professionally. That might not have been as good of players. So I just think beach is like just such a cool environment that's the case. It really helps you grind every day.
Really hope that like it's able to grow. I feel, and I keep thinking this and seeing it year to year. And if I come up with a solution, I'll get you involved. But there's got to be a way to scale this. I just haven't quite figured it out yet.
So the first qualifier I ever played, I was actually in Skylar's bracket. We didn't end up playing them. We lost the round before we would have played them. But there were 29 total teams in it. And then less than 3 years later, the smallest qualifier is being capped at 48, right? So in terms of players, the growth is definitely there. In terms of monetary value, not so much, unfortunately.
Yeah. Lost you momentarily. Let's see here. I can grab you back in here. We'll stand by 1 second while we're getting Jordan back on. Let's see. If you are watching or listening, I would say just fast forward through this section. There we go. All right, we got you.
Apologies. No
worries.
Don't know what happened.
It's all good. So yeah, in what you're saying makes complete sense in terms of like the players are there, so the demand to play the game is there. I think there's a high volume of amateur to newbies out there, and there should be a way to capitalize on that and funnel that money upward, because the people aren't playing for the money. They're playing because it's fun. And
yeah, and you go to a beach event, right? Like my bachelor party was the Manhattan Beach Open, and a lot of the people who were at my bachelor party never played volleyball before, but I think they all had a good time. Like it's a fun thing to experience. Just wish there were a way to to show that to the world. And I think it's the most watched Olympic sport too.
It is? Really?
I think, or maybe the most increasingly watched one.
I feel like they say that about lacrosse every year. Not bashing lacrosse, but my point is everyone's like, it's the fastest growing sport. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Well, 10% of 10 is only one more person. So
yeah.
I guess, I don't know, something to keep thinking about, because I think the value's there to watch. I think Amazon does a very poor job with their commentators, whereas I'm watching the FIVB commentators where they actually understand the game, and then but they also know the history of some of the players too that they're able to rope in. Where I feel on Amazon, it's just like, wow, look at him crushing the ball. They'll say something that's just completely wrong to the game or whatever, which you don't like. If you're watching an NBA game, you've got, Chauncey Billups or Paul Pierce commentating the game alongside a seasoned commentator who's providing valuable like insight for people who actually play the game, whereas the other commentator directs like the average folk.
Yeah, I think like give some respect to Dane Blanton, like Olympic gold medalist. I think he knows the game pretty well, but I think it's the second part where they're trying to cater to people who I don't know, maybe play drunk in 6 leagues or see it on their Amazon feed and they're just like, what's this? Whereas I think you're right. I think it kind of goes back to that passion thing. It's a lot more engaging to watch a sport. Like that's why Tony Romo has been so successful in the NFL. He's speaking way above the level of any fan understands. He's pointing out plays before they happen. Like this receiver went in motion here and the cornerback didn't follow, so this is about to happen. And that's exactly what happens. And you're like, I need to watch every Tony Romo game because that was awesome.
Yeah.
So if you had like that level of explanation in volleyball, I think, which the FIVB guy does, he really gives backstories. He's an excellent announcer. I love that guy.
So like one of the things that's crazy is there's not a lot of videos of breaking down blocking, but if you listen to him talk about how the blockers should be blocking, I'm like, what? He's absolutely right. Why? Like what? He doesn't even sound. I don't even know what this guy looks like or his history of volleyball, but he does not sound like someone who actually played the game. He's just watched and observed, and like he's like, oh, like you can clearly see like the way this guy jumps. He jumps straight up, and then he presses over, and that's why he's getting tooled. And you're like, I didn't know people like that knew that.
I also love that he calls people out for messing up too. Like #1 team in the world, and if he like Sorum shouldn't have rolled it right to him. Like, yeah, true.
Well, enough about that. Something I wanted to pivot to here is like resources for learning. You had mentioned Coach Your Brains Out. You had mentioned another podcast. I think one that we didn't talk about was the Learner Lab.
Yeah. So I didn't mention Learner Lab only because they haven't put out an episode in a while, but Trevor Reagan is just absolutely brilliant. So yeah, anyone who hasn't listened to that, if you're interested in getting better at really anything, that's pretty much required, I would say.
I think so. I think there's, especially a basketball player could probably learn a lot. They have a couple, I think 1 or 2 episodes where it's like very basketball specific.
Yeah.
The one about the post player where the coach changed the dribble game.
Yeah.
So essentially a player could dribble infinitely and get infinite rebounds, and the big player would just win because he just back you into the post and then just keep shooting. And I think they did like either a 1-shot constraint or they constrained it to 1 shot and dribbling. And then he ended up at the bottom court of the 1-on-1 and then he quit.
Yeah, I think it's similar to the Steph Curry story that you were telling, where like if he went to Duke, would he be as successful? And it's no, you put all these constraints on yourself. You figure out a way you have to succeed by making it challenging on yourself almost. And that's how you actually get good at stuff.
I'm willing to bet, and maybe one day I can talk to Steph Curry, doubtful, but I'm willing to bet that like some of the step backs and stuff he was doing, he was just like, you know what, at practice, I'm just going to do all step backs today, and no one's going to tell me I can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you take your learning in your own hands, right? And I think that's easier to do when you are Steph Curry at Davidson.
I hear a lot, and this is the fallacy I think that a lot of beach players live in, is the guys believe, and listen, they believe they need to move to Hermosa and they need to move there to get better because that's where all the other guys go to train. While I will say there is a wealth of knowledge, which it has its own advantage. So going to where there's a higher volume of knowledge matters. But when I hear guys talk about it, they never talk about the knowledge, and they talk about the training group composition. And I think maybe what's your opinion in differentiating those two in the learning process?
So I actually did do the California move at one point in my life. I lived in Huntington for 6 months or so, and I mean, I got to train with Ty Trambly when he was one of the top players in the AVP. I think it was the year he won the Chicago event with Brad Keenan, and it's there. I think there are benefits to playing with guys like that, but I also think the people I've learned the most from volleyball, the most of volleyball from, are not the most successful players that I've played against or with. I think a lot of people who are able to break down the game at a level that I guess I can understand are people who have really struggled with it to get to where they are. And I think that's possible anywhere. And then if you look on a world stage, right, a lot of the best teams are from kind of countries you wouldn't really expect them from. And the one kind of standard is that they have a great coach there. Samoilov's dad, Mole's dad. So I think that you can get that anywhere. And I think a lot of the coaches that the U.S. really hypes up are coaches who are super successful players who haven't necessarily translated that into coaching, I guess, beginners up to a top tier level.
Yeah.
So
I think you hit a pretty good spot there, because you've been my coach because you've been running group practice. You've been running the practices, doing a constraint-led approach where you're changing different constraints throughout different drills. We're switching partners. It's really not very technically based. It's more like here's the constraints, how to play the game. We're gonna play it a little bit differently right now. And then I've been working with Coach Geoffrey Carlson, and his approach is more like learning. It's expanding on that, but it's really like just learning how to read and like kind of trust that self too, which we're going to use this to pivot into the inner game of tennis. Is that self, you're learning how to activate more of the self too, which is the person who's just playing the game. It's just natural instincting, versus the self one learner, which I think that's a lot of guys get stuck in that self one learner, where it's like, oh, my platform needs to be angled exactly this way, or I need to keep the ball right in the middle. And I think a lot's missed there.
Yeah. So I that's kind of like my exact takeaway from the inner game of tennis, right? They had a very similar line in there that I've had about volleyball, right? Where in tennis, what it's broken down to is get the ball over the net inside a specific part of the court, right? Doesn't matter how you do it. If you do that every time, you'll never lose. Volleyball is similar, right? Don't let the ball hit your side inside the court. And hit the other side inside their court, right? Yeah. That's what it's broken down to. Yeah. And if you can do it every time with a knuckle pokey, right, and win every point that way, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So you watch on a world scale, right? Like everyone talks about the importance of the arm swing, right? But then you watch a defender like Plavins who swings once a tournament and sides out better than most of the world scale players or John Hyden. And it's like, maybe putting all this emphasis on my arm swing isn't important, because if I could just see the court really well, I can side out still, right?
I would love to just, you look at Sorum, who may become a gold medalist, and then you look at Bruno Schmidt, who is a gold medalist, and watch their jump mechanics and arm swing completely different.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch, it's funny. Setting is similar, where you're taught, take it in exactly like this, end here, whatever, and then you talk about the best setters in the world. I think Rosie is probably up there. His set looks entirely different than someone like the Germans, who really extend at the end,
Yeah.
which looks entirely different than Karambula, who's also one of the best setters in the world, who's never faced his set in his entire life, but hits every location perfectly. Like, coaches do so much to make you robotic, and then when you actually watch, no one's robotic. They figured out what worked for them.
Exactly. So in the book, and man, so for me in the book, they talk about, like, he never breaks down. He's talking about, like, I don't break down how to hit the forehand arm anymore. Forehand? What's it called?
Forehand? Yeah, forehand.
And he's like, I more just, I put a can on the court and just say, just hit the can. Just hit the ball and hit the can. Don't even think about it. I just want you to put this ball to the can. Just go hit it.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was, within a foot of the baseline or back line. And when he told the lady just to do it versus, like, think about how she's hitting the ball, her numbers went from 1 out of 10 to like 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
Whatever. And you're just like, I wonder, I've had the same experience with just like a cut shot. I'm not very good at cut shotting the ball. When I think about cut shotting the ball, I get worse at cut shotting the ball.
Yeah.
When I think about where I put it, I'm just going to put the ball there. An example, we were playing together in Cincinnati, and you set me, and I get trap set. Logan's blocking. He's got these huge hands up, and I'm like, I just need to cut shot it really well. It's like the best cut shot of my life. Didn't even think about how to. I was just like, the ball needs to go like 1 foot within the net over there for a point. And it just happened. And the point is like, you just got to play.
Yeah. So I think what the book says really well, and so to caveat this, I'm generally very scientific based, and this book is not scientific based at all, right? It might be, but at least he's not putting in sources of it. I don't know like what study this stuff is coming from, but what I can say is based on experience, I think what he says rings very true. And I think it comes down to two things. One is, if you've done it before, your muscles know how, right? And I think that's true, right? Replicating it may be difficult, it may not be, but if you've done it before, you know how to do it, right? If to pass the ball, anyone can do this. Like, passing isn't hard, it's figuring out the read, which is the self one, self two thing. And then the second thing is just kind of what Yoda says: do or do not. There is no try, right? And the more we're like, oh, I'm gonna try to do this, I'm gonna try to do that, your mind's wandering, and all of a sudden it becomes do not. You just start messing it up. And I think that's right. Like, if you've seen it, you know what you're supposed to do, and you've done it before, just take yourself out of the equation and let yourself do it.
So it's really, would you say the learning process is acknowledging that once you know how to do something, right? There's obviously parts of the games that if you hadn't heard it before, that you wouldn't know to do it. But once you've heard things, it's getting mindful, deliberate reps. But not
I think
not overemphasizing the mechanics of the rep.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's like, visualization is very important here. In his book, he says essentially, instead of telling them anything, I show them and take away what they see from it, right? And I think that's important because it puts the learning requirement on the learner rather than on the teacher, right? Because I'm not telling you what to do. I'm showing you and making you point out what you're learning, right? And I think that's pretty important. And I think the more of that you can put in someone else's mind, and then on the replication phase of like turning the visualization into something that I'm actually doing, I think it's right. At first, it's going to take thought, which is why I think there are times where you need to slow it down a little bit and really get it where you can think about it and still function. But the ideal is to then be able to move it into something where, you know, you do it without thinking about it.
Yeah. Have you gotten to the section? So I'm reading it like subsection at a time, like really short, because I feel like dang, each 2 or 3 pages has a great little nugget in it. So I just read this section. Have you read the section about the hippo and the hippo's baby, the mom hippo and the baby hippo?
I don't think I've gotten there yet.
So he watched the whoever wrote the book, the author of the book talks about a time he watched a mom hippo teach a baby hippo how to swim. And what the mom hippo did is exactly what you said. Went into the water, submerged, went down to the bottom, held for 15 seconds or so, and then just came up for a breath. And then the next thing the mom hippo did was just push the baby hippo in and force the baby down, push the baby down, let the baby come out, and then left the baby alone to swim. And it did it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that comes down to, because he talks about like childhood development a little bit too. And, you know, walking, you don't correct someone learning how to walk. You just let them figure it out. They see you and they do it. And I think the more we can kind of implement that in everything we do, where you see it and you go do it without, you know, you put your knee here and then your foot goes there, and, you know, like that's not how anyone has ever learned to walk. So why are we learning other things like that?
Yep. So true. I think, well, God, it's so many things tie together that I've been hearing, you know, whatnot. Like Kelly Starrett's, like he said, like you walk like the way your parents walk, and I'm like, never thought about that. And then you watch your parents walk, you're like, holy crap, I do walk the way they walk, whether it's right or wrong, because I don't want to get into the mechanics of like walking incorrectly, but essentially people can walk with this like pigeon toe or duck foot, pigeon toe, duck foot. And if you find yourself not walking straight, go look at your parents and see if they're doing that. Right there is like evidence. The point is there's evidence of it there.
Yeah, the visualization into actuality. And that means my eventual kids are screwed based on the way Allie walks.
She's just all over the place. Hopefully she doesn't hear that.
Oh, I'll let her know.
Sweet. Well, that is all I've got so far for today. I'm hoping to get you back on here again. There's more to talk about throughout the year. But,
absolutely.
Got anything else? Just out of curiosity, I know you're kind of a hermit of sorts. If someone's looking for a pretty good partner or wants to talk to you about learning, where do they get a hold of you? Are you
really good question?
You're not able to get a hold of? Are you just going to be this secret hermit thing that someone's got to get referred to you?
Yeah, I'll put my email address out there if anyone is desperate to speak to me. It's Jordan Gladstone at yahoo.com.
All right.
Because I'm still from 2001 and have a Yahoo account.
That's great. Awesome.
But yeah, I am not easy. I have a LinkedIn too that I check once every 6 months. I think I actually have a friend request pending from you there.
Don't worry, I definitely added you.
But yeah, I don't have much. Pretty much phone is it.
Well, if someone reaches out to me about you, I'll forward your information along if they didn't get your email.
That sounds good.
All right. Perfect. Well, thanks for being on today.
Yeah, no problem.
All right.